Hi, I'm here with Dr. David Fraser, the author of Relationship Mastery. Welcome. Thank you for being here today with us. Let's talk about this book. Why should people buy this book?
Because it just makes such a difference to their lives, really, because it's all about how well we get along with other people, whether professionally or personally.
Yeah, there's a big one right there. If you buy the book, you can get a whole handful of information about both personal and professional relationships. So the tools in the book apply to both scenarios. So how did you do that? What are some tools in the book that you can take away that will do both of those things, accomplish both of those?
Well, the first one really is about whether we pay attention to ourselves, what's going on for us, or other people. That's one. Another one is the attitude that we bring to things, whether that's at home or at work, and how self-controlled we are as we do that, how calm we are at home or at work. That's a big deal for a lot of us, I think. So
just those three things.
That's three to start with, yeah. There's more, of course. But
yeah, in your book you talk about 12 things, really, that are very important to successful relationships. Would you mind covering those?
Sure. Well, there's those three. Just attention to others is the first one. The attitude that we have, being self-controlled. The wavelength that we have, are we on the same wavelength as the people that we're dealing with?
Sure.
What we focus on, which is an aspect of personality, really, how well we connect with people, what our values are and what other people's values are. Then the language that we use, some things about the language that we can learn that make a big difference. How self-aware we are.
Sure. Then
how much we attend to what's important for us, how clear we are about what we want. And then there's like how we balance all that, there's what's important for you.
There's a lot to balance there.
There's a lot to balance, yeah. And then finally love, just the human connection side of things. That's kind of what wraps it all up together, yeah.
Does, I understand you're an engineer by profession. We're following social media while we're interviewing you, and some people are tweeting in. And how is it that you went from being an engineer to writing this book?
Well, I just learned that was the next logical thing to do, really. Perhaps not so much in my career, but in my life. There's a point where we realise it's actually all about the people. Yeah. And I had the good fortune to learn some really useful things about that, and they made a great difference to me. And I thought I'd like to share these with other people because they just make a great difference.
How would the things that you've learned in Relationship Mastery apply back to your engineering career?
Well, engineers sort of famously, don't really focus on the people side of things. But in fact, even engineers need to do that to get the job done.
Did that hurt you before?
Yes. Yeah, it was what limited my career at one point. It wasn't what I knew about engineering or management or even leadership or managing employees, that sort of thing. It was just certain mistakes I made in dealing with other people in that corporate business environment. And it wasn't that I was awful at it, it was that it just wasn't good enough quite to get the results that I needed to get at a fairly senior level, but still, it's...
Yeah, sure.
And that's a limiting factor for a lot of people.
So it sounds like you took some engineering principles and applied them to the book. In other words, some logical things, such as NLP. Could you explain what NLP is?
Sure. Well, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which sounds like a big mouthful of words, and it is a big mouthful of words, but really it's about the habits that we form. The things that we repeatedly do. We form habits in how we relate to other people, and we become unaware of those. We do things unconsciously, and that means that most of what happens in our relationships we're not really that aware of, but we can become aware of it and then choose to do something different, make changes.
So we were talking beforehand and you said I'm auditory.
That's right.
That's one of the things, I'm auditory. There's other things that you can be. What are those other things that have to do with neuro-linguistic programming? Well,
first, auditory, of course, is the preference for hearing and sounds, and liking the spoken word and music and all that sort of thing. That's an auditory preference. But you also have visual preference, where people are very keen on pictorial things, and they actually think in pictures a lot of the time.
That's not me.
No, it's not me neither. Me neither, actually. So that's one. That's visual, and actually the majority of people have that preference. Something like 70%, in fact. So you and me, I are in the minority there, in fact. Yeah. And you also have kinesthetic, which you might all call touchy-feely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And people, they tend to speak more slowly, among other things. That's one of the ways that you can tell. There's a whole lot of ways you can tell.
So if we're speaking with somebody who's kinesthetic, we slow our speech down a little bit and talk slower and things like that, versus if we're auditory, we might just speed it up and throw some music in there. And, and if we're speaking to somebody visual, you might throw some pictures behind us or something.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the gist of what you're saying. But a lot of that is a lot of communication is nonverbal. Is all of that nonverbal communication?
Well, in a sense it is. There are really three things. There's the words that we say, and then there's our tone of voice as we say, the words that we say. And some of that is informed by whether we're visual or auditory or kinesthetic. So that's like the speed that you were talking about. So visual people tend to be very quick, they speak quickly like this, whereas kinesthetic is slow, and, you know, yeah. So if you want to tune in to people, then these are the sort of things that you want to be aware of. And if you do tune in, you're talking to people like the way they talk to themselves. And so they hear you. Auditory. You know, you focus in on hear because you're auditory. So a visual person might say, oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does let's go back here to social media for just a minute, and let's talk. People really are interested in the NLP part of things, but what's wavelength? What does wavelength mean?
You can imagine wavelength as, you know, a wave. So that's kind of a visual, and then you could have a wave of things kind of moving. So that's a kinesthetic sort of bit. And then you have waves that are sound, so it's, you know, it's a wave as well, but it's a sound. So the word wavelength actually works in all three of those dimensions. It's visual and auditory and kinesthetic. So if you use the word wavelength, everybody gets it.
Right. Got it. Okay. So I got it. See?
Yeah, you did.
It worked.
Yeah.
All right. So with everything, I want to make sure we mention your website, which is drdavidfraser.com. And where can people buy your book?
Well, it's available anywhere that you can buy books. So in Amazon and typical bookstore, and also on iPad. Yeah, you could get it on your iPad.
That's my touchy-feely part.
Yeah, and on Kindle as well. Yeah. So
good. Well, thank you so much for being with us, sharing us your wonderful relationship skills. Relationship Master. It's available wherever books are sold. And you know, just thank you for being with us. And Dr. David Fraser.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, all right,
thank you.
take care. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.